Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about Zeta. Zeta is a stock that just reported its Q1 earnings. Absolutely stellar. Listened to the whole call. Looked at all the results. Stellar earnings, firing on all cylinders. The stock was up quite a bit on earnings day. And then it ended up closing the day roughly flat, losing all of its gains for no reason whatsoever. So as everything is running, there are still deals in this market. So let's go ahead and talk about Zeta. Before I go and talk about what they do, which is the important part and is a little more difficult to explain, I would argue, let me go through the numbers. So the numbers of Zeta look great to me. And I put the trade desk here as a comparison to not exactly a competitor because Zeta sits on top of trade desk, but Zeta has a DSP that competes also with the trade desk. But Zeta, of course, is a much bigger story than just one side of marketing. They are, why I call it the Palantir of marketing, they are a platform that aims to sit on top of everything marketing. And then they just launched an AI agent called Athena, which I know they don't sell it like this, but in my view, might replace much of your marketing department pretty soon because you'll just have Athena AI agent take care of the marketing for the entire organization, and maybe you don't have to worry as much about marketing professionals. That's my take. That's not what they say, right? They say, oh, Athena works with the marketing professionals, right? But it's what they say for everything before they introduce almighty, quite powerful AI capable of taking action. And the Zeta Athena AI is capable of taking action on its own, which is a pretty big deal. Okay, let's talk about Zeta. So the numbers look really great. They achieve a rule of 67. Now that's the way they calculated looking at trailing 12 months growth, which they had at 50%. As far as I'm concerned, the numbers that I get for the forward revenue growth is 35%, and EBITDA margin, as I calculated for the quarter with the guidance for this quarter, I'm getting 22%. So EV over GP over RG is 0.15. Dirt cheap, right? More than 2 times as cheap as the trade desk, and the trade desk is considered universally cheap. And the rule of 40, of course, is a 57. It's worth noting that Zeta is founder-led, just like the trade desk. Lots of founder ownership. They just did a change to their compensation plan where there's not going to be any dilution going forward, something they mentioned on the call as a milestone. They have a buyback program in place with $148 million remaining on the buyback program. Keep in mind, this is a stock that is $4.5 billion. So, that's somewhat meaningful. $100 million is not something to sneeze at. But, it's not $1 billion, but it's still pretty good. We like to see that. I like to see that very much. Importantly, 19th straight beat and raise quarter, which means that they have a tendency to under-promise and over-deliver. Under-promise and over-deliver. You can see their guidance is essentially, they're guiding for 2028. I like that. Long-term guidance. I love that. They're guiding $2.3 billion revenue for 2028, which would mean that the CAGR is 23%. And my guess is going to be much more. And why do I say that? Because they were able to actually grow compounded in the past from 21 to 2025 at a 30% rate. So their guidance is 23%, while in the past they've done 30% rate. And you can see adjusted EBITDA is growing faster at 45%. Free cash flow is going even faster at 75%. What does that tell you? That tells you that it's a business that has achieved operating leverage. They are in the part of their growth where the cash, the money actually grows much faster than the revenue, and so that means that the new revenue coming in is covered by cost of goods sold that just don't grow nearly as fast. And of course, this business is mostly intellectual property, right? I'll get to that in a second as to why it's mostly mostly IP business that others don't have, and this is why I think their AIs win. So in my metric here, I put 35% forward revenue growth. Note that they guided 37%. 37% is what they guided for this year, but we are already a quarter in, so I felt like dropping it a little bit at 35%, and that's how I get to this number. So it passes the test, dirt cheap. It passes the test, and then here's the reason why I think the stock is, kind of down, kind of has not done anything for the past, let's call it a year. Why? Well, I think they got caught into the software trade, the software stock. People saying, oh, AI is going to take over everything. AI is going to take over the marketing function. We're not going to need their software anymore. And boom, you sell it off, right? They've been held up with other companies like Adobe, other companies like CRM, Salesforce, and they suffer from being associated in that bucket, from being in that bucket. That's what they suffer. But this stock is very, very different in my view, because yes, they are an agentic AI stock. Yes, I think this is going to be the leading. Well, I don't know, but I think from what I hear in the call, I think it's going to be if not the leading AI agent in the agentic future that we are headed towards. But you see, if you have the best AI, you can't have the best AI agent, because that best AI needs to have the best data. And of course, Zeta has been working on this data for nearly 2 decades, on collecting this data, on being compliant with this data. They've been working on that for a very, very long time, on aggregating all sorts of data sources. They've been working on that for a long time. And by the way, their Athena marketing engine is set to generate 600% return on investment on marketing spend. 600% return on marketing spend. So they're providing a huge return for marketing spend via choosing who to target, when to target them, how to target them, the most effective way to target them. Prioritizing things like free channels as opposed to paid channels, because they sit on top of all of the different providers of advertising, so they're kind of context agnostic, which is why I call it the Palantir of AI. So now let's talk about the business. And the business, like I said, I don't think it's the easiest business to understand. I don't think advertising is the easiest business to understand, but it's important to realize that, first of all, just like Palantir, they have a top-of-the-funnel revenue growth strategy, i.e. they sell to big companies first, and then they are moving down to medium size and maybe one day small businesses. They talked about potentially reaching medium-sized businesses on the call, thanks to Athena, thanks to the AI being highly, highly scalable. Okay, so they are at 51% of a Fortune 100. They serve big business, big companies, and whenever they're beginning their conference calls, they talk about their new customer wins. Typically, very, very big businesses. In this call, they focused on a major apparel business, right? So I don't know which apparel business could it be. Could it be Gap? Could it be a company like that? Could be, but a major one. And they talked about how they got rid of many of their former customers and replaced it with the Zeta platform, which is exactly how they sell. You can see Zeta consolidates all 3 of them. So it sits on top. So just like Palantir, you could use Palantir to replace some apps, or you could connect Palantir to other apps. Zeta does the same thing for marketing. You could entirely, for example, eliminate the Trade Desk as a DSP and decide to use Zeta's, right? And you could decide to maybe pick an app, maybe pick a platform because it's too embedded into your corporation. So maybe you want to keep using Salesforce because you've been using it for too long, but maybe you're okay getting rid of like half the software that the corporation use and move it all to Zeta, one level up, one level higher up. And because Zeta connects to all of these platforms, then you can control your entire marketing from just one platform, which is the Zeta platform, which has just built an AI agent, which will be joining you on your Zoom calls, and you can just talk to the AI agent, and then the AI agent can just run the campaign, do changes live for you in the campaign, do whatever for you on the campaign. And it's AI-powered marketing, that's what they call it. AI-powered marketing using AI to target, using AI to identify how much money to spend, using AI to decide which channel to use, which customer type to follow, how quickly you should move, compounding returns, right? So it's the AI running the marketing department and running the entire marketing. And of course, the Zeta Edge, one system for all touch points. And they have a graph, right? This is artificial intelligence. This is a machine learning company. So they have a graph where they try to connect and track people, track and connect people, target people, thanks to the graph, who gets clues from all over the internet, gets clues from containers, connectors, and content. And that graph, by the way, is, in my view, the main source of competitive advantage that Zeta has. You may have the best AI possible. If you don't know how to target people, if you can't follow people as they go through their life, and you try to sell them, I don't know, you try to sell them a new car or something, you need to be able to follow people in their entire life, being their email, being maybe their smartphone, maybe a text on their smartphone, maybe the TV shows that they watch, maybe the websites that they browse, maybe Instagram if they use that. You need to be able to follow these people all over their daily life, wherever their daily life takes them. And this is exactly what Zeta does. That proprietary graph that they have is, in the US, from what I understand, 245 million identities / people tracked in a data privacy compliant way. So, they probably don't collect last names and things like that. They probably don't collect, addresses and things like that, because it's not compliant with all sorts of data privacy and browser rules. But they are able to track 245 million people in the US alone as they live through their life. And of course, that's what they sell, is the ability to target these people. So the moat here is their knowledge of these people and their tracking on these people in a data privacy compliance way. That's the moat, right? That's the moat. And you can see you're moving away higher up level than, say, a DSP like the Trade Desk, or than, say, a CRM like Salesforce, which may have some customers, but not all of the customers listed on there. And this is why. So, Forrester, Gartner, these consulting agencies who do ranking of like top software, you can see that Zeta is named as a leader and they have most possible score in things like compliance, data management, data governance, vision, innovation. So they're very, very high up. Very interesting to see Adobe right here. Maybe Adobe is not as dead as people would have you believe. I don't know about Adobe. I think their design business is more at risk of disruption, but obviously it's a very big enterprise. Point is, Zeta is ranked as a leader at the top. And of course, a lot of CFOs look at these rankings to decide which software to adopt. But more importantly, as far as we're interested here, is how hard is it to replicate that? Well, it's probably pretty hard, because the access to these people, the access to tracking these people, the data, you probably have a decade plus of history, which made it so that you ended up collecting all of these data on these people, and you're able to know these people very well and to be able to target these people very well. And you can see they talk about all of your different sources of data on these most of the adult population of the U.S., most of the connected population of the U.S., and they talk about how each sources of data which they own contribute to the graph, right? And you can see, I suppose, third party they don't own, right? That one they don't own, but it's only 10 to 15%. So if you wanted to recreate that, you would have to track so many people. You would have a very hard time doing that. And that's the problem. Like, if you just advertise through Meta is not going to track Meta users. It's not going to track Google users. It's not going to track people who use entire over properties. It's going to have a harder time with Apple users. So the main asset of Zeta is their graph of 245 million Americans, and they don't communicate on people outside of the US. But my guess is, of course, is that they are also doing that outside the US. So at some point they will be doing it. I don't know much. They don't talk about that. It seems to be a mostly USA business. And of course, the GDPR, which is the European regulation, you need to comply with that because a lot of US websites are international websites. So that's kind of how the EU has pushed its regulation to the entire world, because if businesses want to do business in the EU, they have to follow the GDPR. Anyways, and graphs, of course, they're essential for AI, mapping, connectional reasoning, and enable understanding context rather than just viewing a data point. And context is important to know when to give an ad for that car at the right moment of that person that you know very well because of your graph. And of course, the deployment of these heavily targeted marketing campaign is at some point going to be done entirely by AI. And right now, this is their big push. Their Athena, the super intelligent agent revolutionizing marketing, which you're able to talk to. It's able to give predictions as to what's going to happen. And this is important, real-time activation and measurement. So you can just have the AI orchestrate the entire marketing. And this is why I think as these AI become better and better and better, at some point the marketing department will be just Athena, and you may just have Athena connect to another AI agent of another function of a corporation, and they all work together. That's kind of my vision of the future. So I'm very short human capital. I am very short human labor. You can't really short that though. But to me, this is gonna be an insane takeover, and I think this company is a winner. This company looks like a winner, and I hope you see why Palantir of marketing is more than a marketing gimmick. Pun intended. It actually looks much closer to a Palantir than many other companies that I've seen. So, anyways, hopefully you found this interesting. This was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.